So I'm Levi Emerson. I'm here with Ryan Boyer, who's been kind enough to help me out with my final project. Ryan has looked at my website for the Pacific Islanders that I've created for the race and ethnicity class, um, and he's come in with three questions, and those questions being, what did the Pacific Islanders face? What trials did they face in coming to the U.S.? How did they adjust, and what trials do they face today? So I'll be using my website and things we have discussed this semester to answer the questions, yeah, clarify some things. So first off, what trials did the Pacific Islanders face? And really, if we go to um, the ethnic conflict, hopefully,
Hopefully will be done.
yeah, I'll let. There we go. Okay. So really, in coming to the U.S., we couldn't find a whole lot of conflicts that the Pacific Islanders faced. Um, they're pretty easygoing. However, in other countries, not just in the U.S., they face a lot of different ethnic conflicts. For example, in Papua New Guinea, they are killing each other over a mine, basically. And so in this, they are starting to destroy each other, even though they're in the same Pacific Islanders. The Papua New Guineans are starting to kill off I'm going to destroy this name, but the Bulgarians. Um, and it's over this dispute that escalated after World War II. And they started with armed forces leaving the islands and leaving huge stockpiles of arms and of weapons and whatnot. So the Papua New Guineans took this up and took on the Bulgarians, I think that's how you say it, over a mine that opened in the 1980s. And they extracted gold and silver and started to really cause conflict. So what the New Guineans did is they basically blockaded the Bulgarians and starved them, deprived them of any medical attention, deprived them of all kinds of different resources that they could have used to better their lives. So that was one of the things that really the Pacific Islanders faced, as well as, make sure my screen share is on here. So we can see, so as we look through them and we talk about what solutions could be going on. And then we talk about a contact hypothesis, which is a theory that close and sustained contact between two parties promotes more tolerant attitudes towards one another. So say that you're not getting along with your brother, there's fights and whatnot. But if your parents make you and your brother start working together, and you have to work towards one goal together, do you think that will help you?
Most likely. That or the project won't be finished.
Yeah, it'll cause more good. Well, the contact hypothesis talks about how, as we go throughout our lives and we're put into these conflicted situations, that if you work together with, again, your brother toward one common goal, that is going to be able to help not only achieve the goal, but also help you and your brother come together. So I guess that's the best way to put it. And so the way we apply this into, especially the Papua New Guinea situation, is if both people, both tribes, were able to work the same copper and silver mine and to share the profits 50-50, that them working together towards one goal would help them overcome their differences. So that was one thing that I really learned about the Pacific Islanders and some of the trials that they face. And it also talks about how they adjust, However, if we go back to, let's go up here, to another part of our website and things we learned is about human variance and social construction of race. And all that's talking about is that there's common stereotypes to each thing, but really the social construction of race is that no matter what, if we are all the same color, we are all equal in every way. Say, dark skin, dark hair, dark eyes. There will be some form of racism to come out of that. No matter, it may be that this person has a size 12 shoe, or this person has a size 13 shoe. So that's what the social constructionism of race is that there's always going to be somebody creating a social class of some sort. And so with Pacific Islanders, one thing that they start, some of these socially constructed stereotypes are that Asian and Pacific Islanders are the same thing, which in fact that they aren't. As we know, Asia is made up of China, Japan, and countries that are mainly connected inland. The Pacific Islanders are made up of several chains of islands in the Pacific Ocean. Indonesia, you go down into the Hawaiian Islands, the Tongan Islands, Samoa, you get into those areas, and that's really when you get the Pacific Islander regions. Next one is that all Pacific Islanders dance and are good at football. This is something that many people have battled against, is breaking away from that. It is getting to where people don't have that image of them as, hula skirts and coconuts and men with the big tattoos and whatnot. There are those things that exist, but it's not everywhere. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Any questions towards that?
I thought that part of at least Hawaiian culture was the tattoos actually have maybe an important meaning to them. It's not just to be them, it's something for them.
And it did. It did in the olden, I don't know, say probably 30, 40 years ago. But especially now, as things have gone forward, they've learned to use different things. However, that is still a big part of the culture. It's not as focused as it was before.
Okay.
So it's not something that's practiced by every Pacific Islander. Just like every North American doesn't have, a Harley and all their tattoos. It's a select few. Still among the royalty, they do use it. The men usually have full body tattoos, and the women have different brands and patterns that they use. So with this socially constructed racism, you get discrimination. And with racism, there's different types of racism. And the ones that I discussed were selective inclusion, and that most Pacific Islanders struggle in public schools because they're not working to fit in with most students because of their cultural differences. And you really see this in the islands, not necessarily. You won't see it on the mainland as much.
Okay.
But they're excluded because of that. And where it says this feeds the stereotypes that Pacific Islanders are only good for dancing and football, is because they are included and they're not chosen for their smarts, but they're thrown into that stereotype of, hey, we have a football team, you want to play, or hey, do you want to be on the dance team? Will you teach us the hula, or will you teach us the haka, or some form of that? So that really works against it. Also exclusion. This is just again, the stereotype feeds that Asians, the Pacific Islanders are the same thing. Even the Pacific Islander and Asian History Months here in the United States are put together. It's you don't hear about it. It's not made as big of a deal as Black History Month, or you take your pick of whatever month you want to choose. Latin American Appreciation. It's all lumped into one. To give that fact that they are just the same people. There are differences, but they're not the same. So this really tends to hurt the Pacific Islanders because they don't have their own identity. They're always lumped into one thing. So even on forms when you're filling them out, it says Pacific Islander Asian American. So it's not separated. And so one of the things is that we go into adaptations, and it's passive acceptance. So instead of saying, hey, I don't play football, or hey, I don't dance, a lot of Pacific Islanders will fall into that and will say, okay, I know how to do some hula, let me do it for you. Or really they should, let me make sure this is still working. Okay. So really they should be able to keep moving forward and say, hey, no, I don't know how to do the hula, or no, I don't play football, but I'm really good at math or science, or let me draw you something. This is that passive acceptance, so they just say, okay, whatever. Assimilation is where they just fall into it. And I read an article by BYU actually, and it says that the parents want their children to keep their culture and learn to be active participant in American society. So not just forgetting who they are, but saying, okay, I am an American, but at the same time, I do have that Pacific Islander descent.
Sounds like in California with the Latino people and
yeah, a lot of it is, and we see this assimilation in a lot of different cultures. The immigrants from Mexico that come to California, they have kids and they don't teach their children Spanish because they don't want them to be looked at any different. It's the same thing where parents are taking their children and not teaching them things because they want them to be American. So that's another really big thing that struggles. Sorry, wrong thing. So another really great thing that I learned about in this class is the matrix of domination, and this falls into the trials that we face today, that Pacific Islanders face today, and it's the fact of that the education, media, crime, family, health, and housing are all put into how our race reacts. So if you are we'll start with education. If you are not educated, there's no opportunity for you to grow into become into something.
Yeah, a lot of people have a negative stigma towards you, and they want to give you a promotion to maybe fire you to let someone else in that has.
Exactly. They say, oh, no, you can go work the fast food job. Which is not bad. It's how many people make careers. But education for the Pacific Islanders, a lot of Pacific Islanders, especially on the islands, are dropping out of school. And they're not helping their economy grow. They're not helping their, they drop out to become farmers. They drop out to become herdsmen. They drop out to become fishers. So instead of saying, okay, let me get my education so I can better my life, they're willing to say, okay, I'm willing to just go back to the old ways. And that's something that really, really actually ends up hurting the Pacific Islanders is the fact that they don't take advantage of the educational opportunities. Another thing is the media. And this is because, if you think of a movie in the last 20 years in Hawaii, what do you see?
51st Dates.
Well, and that, yeah, you see those things. And in there even you see the stereotypes towards Hawaiians with the spam and egg, or the spam and waffles.
And he's a cook.
Yeah. He's not. He has tattoos everywhere. So the stereotypes are fed through the media. And whereas if you watch movies in the media, you'll see that, especially one of my favorite actors is John Wayne. If you watch a John Wayne movie based in Hawaii, and there are a couple of them, you see the native Hawaiian people are serving the white guy. And does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's always the Hawaiians serving someone else. There's never a movie just based about the Hawaiians and what they're going through.
I think the closest we get to the other side of heaven that I can think of.
Definitely. Where
he's going there to serve them and help them.
Yeah. And that really was a change in the media because of things like that. But so the media also contributes to this matrix of domination where it's kind of feeding those stereotypes. It's feeding this quote-unquote racism towards how we view the Pacific Islander people. Another thing that really feeds into it is family. A lot of the Pacific Islander nations have accepted Mormonism and have accepted the gospel of Jesus Christ. And so that's really helped unify their families. However, just because someone is taught something doesn't mean that's going to always be present throughout their life. And so families has really helped unify and keep that going. Whereas if families were breaking up, the men in the house were running away, had multiple wives, didn't care about them all. That's really going to break down the society and break down who they are. Any questions on that?
No.
All right.
I've seen it.
Yeah. Another one that's really important in the Pacific Islanders is housing. We've seen a lot of what? What we're seeing a lot of is, Pacific Islanders, they have 5 and 6 families in one house, which is, causes a diminishing health and different problems in that. Whereas if you were able to grow your infrastructure and your family was able to grow in an area where, there are no limits, where you're saying, oh, we can't have a child because I don't have any place to put them, or I'm feeding my brother's family, so I'm not trying to have my own. That's something that really dwindles the possibility and the livelihood of these people. So this is something that we really focus on, is this matrix of domination. Trying to think of. There's just been a lot of really interesting things that I've learned in this class, and a lot of them being that we as people may not think that we're racist or that we do anything that's racist, but really there are a lot of things that we go through each day, even though they may not be racist in our own eyes. They are. Let me turn this screen share off. They really are affecting each and every one of us. Because if we don't put a stop to things, if we don't change the way we talk about people, if we don't change the way we write things or the views that we have, if we don't teach our children that, this will always be going on. I can think of even the civil rights movements here in the United States. I'm sure you've talked to your grandparents or your parents, whereas their view is very much different from the things we see. You know, and that's what we need to continue to do as a society is to teach our posterity. Look, this is the do's and don'ts. This is what's right. This is what's wrong. And that's really something that I've learned and benefited from this class. And as we move forward of overcoming, you know, the racism and being aware of it. So, any other questions? Brian, I thank you for your time and thank you for the opportunity.